Hey everyone, welcome to the Outsiders Fantasy Podcast, where we're here to talk about wrestling, kick ass, and chew bubblegum, but we're all out of bubblegum. So, in tribute of the great Stone Cold Hall of Famer Steve Austin, let's all crack a cold one real quick so we can get ready. Fantastic. And for all you marks out there, let's get started. So, those of you that do not know, this is our first episode of our segment called This Week in Wrestling. And what we're going to do is we are going to review, obviously, the past week in wrestling, whether there's a pay per view including the shows or it's just the shows. And we'll also review something of the original series on the WWE Network. How the structure's kind of going to go is we're going to talk about WWE and AEW specifically because they're the two hottest brands right now. I'd love to talk about New Japan. I'd love to talk about all the other promotions that have great talent, but that would require 6 to 8 hours of podcast time. I feel like right now the two most important brands to talk about are WWE and AEW. So we're going to start with SmackDown, then we're going to segue into Raw, talk about NXT, and then we're going to hit on AEW Dynamite. And then tonight, since there is no pay-per-view on Sunday, instead of previewing the pay-per-view, we're actually going to talk about episode 1 through 3 of Taker's Last Ride docuseries. Make sure to join in next week because we're going to go through 4 through 6. We broke it up because there's so much with that we can talk about because I'm sure you guys feel the same way. We all love Taker. We're passionate about Taker. It's something very near and dear to our hearts. So we're going to start off with SmackDown and get that rolling. First, I'm going to go ahead and get, before we get to the big story of Roman and Paul Heyman and how that's turning out, I want to talk about the other feuds and changes that are kind of going on. Right now, so Bayley was being a heel. Her and Sasha Banks had their own thing going on. Two-belt Becky, all that type of stuff. Or not two-belt.
Two-belt Bayley and two-belt Banks.
Two-belt Bayley. Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry.
Yeah.
They had that whole thing going on. You can obviously see from the start, from the very beginning, that someone was going to turn on somebody. You just didn't know when. It became a lot more obvious once Sasha lost her singles title. And then you can just see the relationship deteriorating after that. Finally, they did make I would call it a heel turn, but Bayley was already a heel, but she kind of amped it up. So she kind of had a heel turn. That can be a phrase or something like that. You're free to use it if you want. So Bayley showed a little bit more aggression, something that I think she needed because I never believed in her as a heel before that moment. She still seemed like Bayley, but just not her authentic self. Like she was playing a heel instead of she was actually a heel. Like some of the greats in the past, like The Rock or Chris Jericho, where you just feel that they're just a terrible person. Obviously we have the Profits against the Street Profits against Shinsuke and Cesaro. I don't really know what to say about that other than it's getting that and the Lucha Brothers or the faction with the three Lucha wrestlers.
Yeah.
It is just, it's getting super repetitive. New Day not being healthy and in the picture is obviously making the tag landscape struggle in WWE.
There's no structure. There's no structure to the titles right now. They throw them on whoever, so they're placeholders. I mean, there's nobody that really means anything.
That's how I feel. And I mean, they're all talented. Like the Street Profits, they're really athletic. Shinsuke and I mean I don't know how they would do as in singles, but we know Cesaro and Shinsuke can support themselves in singles.
As long as Shinsuke and Cesaro don't get into a promo battle, they're going to take. They're going to win. They're terrible on the mic, but
that is one of their weaknesses is their mic skills. But they're definitely more than capable to improve so that they can carry a singles title.
Absolutely.
It's just so confusing. I know Clash of Champions coming up, but I feel like even if it wasn't, they just don't have anything else to do creative with it. So they're just mixed. They're just bringing both the SmackDown and Raw Tag Team Champions back on every show just to feud, just for feud's sake.
Yeah.
And it's feeling really repetitive. And once again, Kalisto gets the one up on Cesaro with, for some reason, now all of a sudden the most powerful move in the WWE, the old school roll up pin for the 1, 2, 3. Apparently it is unbreakable for some reason. So
I know that's the 24/7 champion's been won that way in the past 67 times. I mean,
I'm okay with anything R-Truth does because even if he does it, he's gonna make it entertaining somehow.
Yeah.
For some reason that is the most devastating move in pro wrestling nowadays. Now that we have all that out of the way, some of the highlights from Raw. Obviously, I'm not going to hit on everything or we'd be here for a while since we're covering 4 shows. And some weeks we'll be covering 4 shows in a pay-per-view or 2 pay-per-views. So I'm going to segue into what I feel like is the main and most important part and the main focus of SmackDown. And that is, number 1, Bray Wyatt and Fiend. Where do they go from here? It was very confusing in the beginning in the first place for many reasons. I got their swamp match that Braun was a face. Fiend was a heel, obviously. Granted, the match was not very exciting. They tried to capture the magic that AJ and Taker had, and they just couldn't do it. I feel like they should have had the match that they had at SummerSlam, but they had a defined babyface and a defined heel, which is what I'm always a fan of. Unless you're an anti-face like Stone Cold, then you can still root behind him. But then it just turned into, after that match, like Braun lost his mind, which is, they can play it like that, but I felt like they played it the wrong way, and they made Braun seem like a heel with his promo with Alexa Bliss, plus the Fiend coming to her rescue, even though it ended not good for Alexa. Obviously, with what happens this past Friday, how she did Sister Abigail, somehow Fiend had some type of power over her, but still.
And they're also teasing that too. They were saying, Braun will have a new, or Bray will have a new character on Firefly Funhouse. Well, everybody thought it was like, Bliss is going to come up as Sister Abigail and all this. And so they're doing those little Easter eggs and those little teasers. Yeah, it was, it was the walrus that's supposed to be Heyman.
But even in that swamp match, they distracted Braun with a little half-second Alexa Bliss in her, black lace veil and stuff like that. But I didn't really like the direction that it started going. It started losing steam really fast come SummerSlam because I didn't know who to root for. Like, I like them with the titles because I feel like, number 1, Bray Wyatt is definitely more entertaining on the mic and character-wise, but I know how hard Braun has worked and where he's come from. I've followed him through his powerlifting career, and he's got such a good heart, and he's such a nice guy. Not saying that Bray isn't outside of his character, but I've been wanting Braun to have a legitimate title run for a while. I feel like that was cut short, so I was kind of resenting of that. Plus, Fiend, I don't think he needs to be in title pictures to be relevant, but if he's gonna be, don't let him have it for only a week and then drop it. All you're doing is making him look weak that way.
Yeah, he looks weak. And the thing is with me, with the Fiend doesn't need a belt. The Fiend
Exactly.
needs something to destroy. He
He's
doesn't
like
care about titles.
He's kind of like
he's just like Taker and Stone Cold.
that's exactly what I was about to say.
Yeah,
They don't need it.
Everybody
don't
asks
need
why
the
did
belt.
Taker not have the belt so much? He didn't need the belt.
No,
The title
because-
makes them. Most titles make the wrestler. He would make the title. He doesn't need a belt because he's already made his character made itself.
His character and storylines, and I feel like the creators would kind of get off their asses a little bit. They can take Fiend, maybe give him like Mankind, give him the title maybe like 5 times in his career.
Yeah, just to give him a hey, good job for doing what you're doing. Here's the belt.
Exactly, but if you're gonna give it to him for more than a week. That's just disrespectful. That's the second time they've done that shit to him. And it's really disrespectful to his character. And for some
especially as hard as he's worked on this Fiend character and the
exactly,
build-up, and you make it that weak.
Yeah, I was just about to say, and yet he still gives credibility and strength to this character, and just shows the testament to how great he is on the mic and how great he is telling the story in the ring.
And he's got the most difficult job. He's playing 2 different characters. Exactly. I mean, he's like Mick Foley with 3, but he's playing his Firefly Funhouse character with his Bray, and then he's got the Fiend, which is 2 completely separate. I mean, they're both maniacal and evil, but they're 2 separate characters.
Exactly. So I didn't really appreciate where that went and how short it went. I do agree that it was probably kind of rushed because they wanted to get Roman his title back because they obviously needed. They were so eager to reveal this new heel turn. But I feel like they could have waited and done that, a surprise at maybe Clash of Champions or something like that, or probably not Clash of Champions. I'll rant about that in a second. I feel like if you're going to call it Clash of Champions, it should literally be both brands champions
against each other's champions.
Exactly. That's how it used to be.
Who's the best champion in the company?
Exactly. But like maybe the next big one, what Hell in a Cell. Then have Roman debut in a Hell in a Cell match with Braun and Fiend for the title. You can really show the sadisticness of the Fiend. You can show the monstrosity of Braun Strowman in a Hell in a Cell match.
Let him pull a cane and rip a cage door off. Or
exactly.
You know?
or like running power slam him through the side of the cage and the whole wall collapse or some shit like that.
Exactly.
I feel like they could have waited and they definitely rushed it. Give me 1 second. Getting a little dry.
I'll drink to that.
Okay. Cheers. But yeah, so anyway, I was confused about that. But the good news coming out of it is Roman's finally a heel. I've been calling for that for at least a year and a half. He needed that bad.
They finally did to him what we've been screaming for John Cena for 8 years now.
Yeah, and what we screamed for The Rock when he first debuted at Survivor Series, he was all babyface and just blunt. Like he needed to be a heel. Stone Cold, same thing. Needed to be. If he didn't cut that super heel, making fun of Jake Roberts' sobriety and Christian nature by doing his Austin 316, it would have never been Triple H. He was so good of a heel. He became, when you're over, you're over. It doesn't matter. And I think Roman needed that because from what I understand, I've never been personally in the pro wrestling business, even though I've watched a lot about it. I studied a lot. Most of the interviews that I've seen with all types of people, from Kurt Angle to AJ Styles to Ric Flair to Stone Cold, everybody, people prefer to play the heel because they always feel like there is more room to be yourself as a heel. You can be comedic, but have it be mean still.
Yeah.
Like Kurt Angle, he was heel, but he was wearing mini cowboy hats and stroking ukuleles. But everyone still chanted "You sucked" when he come out. So segueing into the big thing, Roman Reigns finally becoming heel. I feel like not only are they making him heel, but they're finally doing it the right way. They're not just making him betray somebody. They're putting some thought, some focus, some feeling into it. And I feel like that's what's making SmackDown the superior brand over Raw. NXT, I still think overall has the best product from start to finish.
Absolutely.
But SmackDown, as far as their main focus storylines, are just beautiful. Like they're beating Raw. So not just did they turn him heel, but they did it in a really great way as far as number one, saying that he wasn't going to sign the contract, but he would be there, and waiting to the very last minute after Bray and Braun beat the crap out of each other, then signed the contract, went down to the ring, speared everybody, beat chairs, and then basically won the title. And then the next week, they cranked it up a notch. And not only did he do that, but that was like a hint of a heel move. But it's also something Roman would do because he's just intense, and he had feuds with both of those people. So
then he pulled a double off on Raw and got his cousin that he's about to face at Night of Champions the crap kicked out of him.
Yeah.
And then he shows up to take the win. So
yeah, we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, that's also another sneak peek into how much they're investing in it. But not only did he do that at SummerSlam, but they doubled down on it by giving him Paul Heyman, which, if you know Paul Heyman's history, he turns people's heel careers into gold. That's all he's ever done. I wish he was part of creative more, and also I'd love to see him as managers and mouthpieces. But Roman, he's decent on the mic. He's not bad at all. He's very passionate with how he talks. He did take time off early in his career to take acting classes, and it definitely did pay off. But you'll never have, well, not never, because just once in a generation mouthpieces like Paul Heyman and the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, and Bobby Heenan. Like you only get these type of mouthpieces every so often. And I feel like Roman, just from his first, like the next day, from his first entrance in his first promo, even his music, even though it didn't change, it just sounded more heel because of the feeling you got from Paul Heyman. And then just the new attitude, the new walk. His face is very solid and focused. Paul's always trying to make eye contact. He's always looking up at him like he's just like worshiping the guy. Whereas with Brock Lesnar and CM Punk, he was more of their partner, their client. He just represented him.
And he was screaming with all of them. Now he's pulling a Jake Roberts on us. He's really speak softly and carry a big stick. He's real matter of fact, and I'm getting my point across, but I don't have to scream it at you. But it's going to scare you when you figure out what I'm saying, you know?
Exactly. Jake's just a scary individual. Paul, but Paul seems just a little bit, he seems more jaded and passionate about it. But some of the highlights, just in case people at home missed it, part of Heyman's promo to add, well, first let me get done with the entrance. Not only was it a new feel with Heyman and Roman as far as their personality was concerned, but they gave Roman ridiculous pyro, which even adds to the conceited feeling that he portrays with his face and how he walks.
The pyro on his entrance costs more than I make in an entire year.
Yeah, and he had it 2 times. He had one in the entrance and then one around the ring. But then, just for those of y'all that missed the Heyman promo, I feel like it's one of Heyman's best promos in a really, really long time. So if you haven't seen it, definitely get the highlights. I'll actually I'll add a link in the comment section for someone else's page, so you can give them some likes and thumbs up as well. But I'll put something in the comments that'll show you Heyman's speech. You can see it word for word, but just the highlights of it. It was very passionate. But he started off saying, "Just when you thought I was out, he pulled me back in. So he's giving credit to Roman Reigns, basically. He's submitting to him. And he said, don't get it confused. It's not me that corrupted him, which is usually what we assume because that's how Paul is. But he made sure to make it known to the fans that it was Roman corrupting him because he pulled him back into the business. He said he was tossed aside, and Roman rescued him back to relevancy because they did the same to Roman that they did to Paul by taking Roman's title away because he was sick. Or with leukemia and trying to prevent his family from getting sick. So basically, it felt like a semi-shoot interview by both of them. Even though Roman didn't really talk, I feel like what Paul said on Roman's behalf, they both really halfway believe it. And as we know, the best characters and the best promos have half truths in them.
I challenge everybody listening to watch that promo and not look Paul Heyman dead in the eye and see the tears welling up in his eyes and the emotion coming out of it. Every word he was saying, he meant every word, and it was personal emotion. Exactly. There was nothing about that was scripted by somebody else. That came from inside of him. Because he has been toyed with for years. I mean, back and forth with, creative and being a talent and being a writer and all this stuff. He feels like he's been jerked around for years. And now Roman's been the same way with him taking his time off. And y'all took that title, the shot away from me at WrestleMania. Not only were you giving it to Goldberg just because he showed up, but you're taking my shot away and giving it to Braun because I just wanted to take some time off because I've had leukemia. Yeah. And there's a massive disease going around. So, they're both jaded.
That's actually a really good point because the next thing that I was going to say is he mentioned on behalf, again, Roman barely talked. So Paul was speaking on behalf of Roman. Just like Chad said, there's the reason why Roman feels the way that he does is that there was no real appreciation for when he did carry the title. Even when he was fighting cancer, he didn't take time off, and he didn't get appreciated for that. He didn't get a thank you. All he did is get criticism from the WWE universe. And to be honest, if you follow pages on Facebook and stuff like that, I mean, it's true. It's 100%.
Yeah.
People were calling for him to drop the title. Oh, right, they're forcing Roman down our throats. All that stuff, but that man was battling leukemia for the second time, showing up every night and performing and putting his body on the line and his health on the line.
And then when he did take time off, he took about the same amount of time off as it would take another wrestler with a sprained ankle. He was like back in a couple weeks. I'm like, on the original time off when he left for leukemia. So.
Yeah, and just like we talked about earlier, another thing that Paul mentioned was not only did they take his title, but they gave it to a Fiend and a Monster. And he said the Fiend doesn't need a title because the Fiend does fiendish things. And the Monster among men, and I'm paraphrasing, so my quote's not like literal, but he said the Monster among men doesn't need a title either because he does monstrous things. Basically what we were talking about earlier, those types of characters don't need a title to support their career. People like John Cena that are like the face of the company that sell the merchandise, that's who needs to be the title holders. And I know sometimes it gets boring, but that needs to stimulate creative and challenge them to create more types of people like that.
You got to have somebody's face to put on the front of a cereal box.
Exactly.
You're not going to have the Fiend's mask looking like something out of Halloween.
Right. Exactly. And I mean, they made a lot of good points. And Paul also mentioned that Roman is the better face of WWE because of that. And he promises that Roman will be not only the greatest champion of all time, but he is even superior to any champion on any WWE show right now, including Drew McIntyre. So Roman is not only getting Heyman passionate, and he's essentially the string puller behind Heyman instead of the other way around. But he's cocky, he's conceited, and he reinforced that by saying that he's even better than Drew McIntyre. He's better than everyone else on all rosters. Adam Cole, Finn Balor, Keith Lee, all those people. And he mentioned that he served one of the things that cemented it. Not every, you could have stopped at any point and his heel start would have been cemented, but something that really two things that really cemented that heel turn properly and not rushed was that Paul mentioned that he serves as special counsel to the tribal chief instead of his client, which means he looks up and worships Roman more than he ever did Brock or CM Punk. And then
he's a follower, not an employee.
Exactly, because it's more of like a cult kind of hypnotism on him. And then when Roman finally got the mic, he called it, usually how he says, "This is my yard," but he changed it. And I think it's very important that he changed it because of how Paul called him the tribal chief. He changed it to, "This is my island." And I feel like that's more powerful than yard, because it's also, that's what the Undertaker used to say, like this, I'm the big dog and this is my yard. And when he was rivaling the Undertaker for the WrestleMania match, I get where that
worked.
Yeah, but he needed to evolve it, and I feel like they did this so perfectly with every facet, and they did it step by step by step by step. And for some reason, they did it within 2 weeks, and it didn't feel rushed. And the second thing that I wanted to talk about with Roman, to even talk more to convince you how great this heel turn is and how much it's going to bolster and propel his career even higher than it has been, is the way that he did Jimmy Uso, which you touched on earlier. Jimmy Uso, they did a fatal 4-way match to see who would contend with Roman Reigns. Granted, I usually prefer the rematch clause, just to get an extra match in there. Just I don't know. I don't know why. I think the fairness balances it out to me. But as we all know, sometimes there's no count out. Sometimes there is. There is no rhyme or reason to shit sometimes. But the fatal 4-way, was it Jay or Jimmy? I think it was Jay Uso. Jay, yeah. So Jay won, which made a really interesting turn of events that I really like, because it's going to test Roman's heel ability more than any other person that could have won that match. Because number one, they're related, literally by blood.
That's for a shoot. they're related for a shoot.
Yeah, The Rock, the Wild Samoans, that whole family, like it's a lineage.
Jax.
So they look at Nia Jax, and now even Rock's oldest daughter is in the Performance Center. But so they brought Jay in, and he ended up winning to challenge Roman for the title. I feel like to really test and even improve more and take a higher step to show Roman's heelness. And sure enough,
the cool thing about that is they kept poking at Jay like, you didn't get this shot on your own. We gave it to you. And then it's like, well, thank Paul for it. No, thank Roman for it. Just, be thankful that you got the shot. You didn't get this on your own. It was because of us, kind of thing. So it's that, you don't belong, but you're my cousin, so I'm letting you into this. So I'm going to give you a shot. It's a tune-up match for me, kind of thing. So
and that reinforced, like we said, that even reinforced Paul's infatuation with Roman, showing that Roman, he's smarter than people gave him credit for.
Yeah.
He's more fiendish and backstabbing than people gave him credit for. It's just a complete 180, and I love it. But one of the best things that they did, other than that, was Roman again showed up late to the match. Jay got his ass kicked.
No, he had the shit beat out of him for
Yeah.
a good 5-10 minutes.
And then at the last minute, just like he did in the triple threat match at SummerSlam, he came down when it was convenient for him, when he didn't have to really put much effort into it, and he was kind of checked out when he was in.
He done been backstage having a snack, took him a little nap.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Oh, okay, time for me to go win.
And it was really subtle. I can't remember what the commentators were saying, but just paying attention to the match, it was really a subtle work of knowing that Jay is his opponent at the next pay-per-view and wanting Jay to be less than 100%, therefore saying that as a classic heel, you don't want a fair advantage.
No. Yeah.
You want your opponent, or you don't want an advantage at all, not a fair advantage. You want your opponent to be at a disadvantage, so it's easier for you to win and retain. And he gave that very subtle thing, just kind of cemented it for me, along with that promo saying that Jimmy didn't really earn it. It was just by the grace.
It was handed
to
him.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my takeaway from SmackDown. And from there, we'll kind of segue into Raw. First of all, I want to talk about, again, how the Street Profits and Cesaro and Nakamura, it just doesn't make sense because they keep showing up and trashing each other's lounges. It just seems like fifth grader petty crap, and I wish they would just.
And the thing that kills me is they just keep handing them to random people that they put together. I mean, when the Revival was there, they were built as a tag team. That was their entire career. The Usos, they were a tag team. The New Day, they created their tag team.
Sheamus and
Cesaro were actually a really good tag team. And even going back to Cesaro and Kid.
Yeah. I mean, I 100% agree.
It's almost like they just don't have anything else to do with them, so they just shove them together and give them the tag team titles. I mean, come on, do something better.
And if we're ranting, I think it's important to. Usually, I want to save the biggest highlight, obviously the heavyweight championship, for the last focus of each show. But since we're ranting, let's continue that passion and get into the next rant that we discussed before we got on air about how finishers are not sacred anymore. And Raw has proven that. They have a great storyline set up between Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre. And number one, sidebar on it, Keith Lee. I love Keith Lee. I'm so glad he moved up. I'm a huge Keith Lee fan. But he does not need to be in this storyline because all he's doing is
not yet.
Not yet. Yes, until they're defining him as something, it's just confusing the heck out of me. Because
it's muddying the waters because you don't know what's going on with him. Is he in the picture or is he just in a match?
Exactly, and they may be doing that so to rush whoever wins the title next between McIntyre and Orton. Keith really gets to jump the rankings, and I don't feel like that's fair to him, or it's fair to the fans in general to rush something like that. You need to start something, focus on it 100%, and then complete it.
And yes, he was the first double champ in NXT, but I think there's other guys on that roster that deserve that spot. Not saying that Keith Lee doesn't. But, I mean, that's why some people get jaded with WWE. They get stepped in front of when they've been in line for so long.
Exactly. So back to how finishers aren't sacred anymore. Back in when Randy was the legend killer, and since he's trying to bring that back with mentioning it, back when he was first doing the punt kick, if you got punt kicked,
you were done.
A minimum 2 to 3 months. And that was usually when people were taking their break. They would get punt kicked.
Yeah, that's like, all right, I'm going on vacation. Time to take a punt kick for a couple months.
Right. Nowadays, it's like
it has the same power as a Stephanie McMahon bitch slap now.
Right, like Shawn Michaels, right after getting punt kicked, Shawn Michaels sat up in the corner. Like, are you serious?
Like, where's my glass of sweet tea?
Drew McIntyre, after 2 punt kicks, got up out of the ring on his own accord and walked out, and then got a 3rd one, and then was still able to get attacked later on in the night.
Yeah.
And like, that's ridiculous. His punt kick used to potentially end careers. Now all it is just a temporary stun.
It's a move. It's like a clothesline. It's just another move in their
watering it down.
And they're doing the same thing with his Claymore.
Exactly. The Claymore, in my opinion, is just as powerful of a kick as a punt kick is.
Yeah.
And if you get hit with that 2 times max.
First off, I do have to say this: coolest finisher name ever, Claymore, the Claymore Mine. I mean, that's awesome. That's probably one of the best finisher names there is in the business.
I'm really impressed with Drew McIntyre. I respect. I wasn't a huge fan of his in the beginning, but I respect the journey that he took to get to where he was at. If you get a chance, if anyone that's listening has the WWE Network, I definitely implore you to watch I believe it was the 24 documentary on his rise, fall, and rise again. It'll really give you a new perspective about how humble he is, how grateful he is, and how even he agrees that he got rushed and he wasn't ready for what he did. And that speaks a lot to his character, and that just makes me want him to have that title even more. But yeah, anyway, finishers aren't sacred anymore, and I know we're kind of breaking away from Raw, but just as a rant, like I remember when the People's Elbow, that was it. I remember when you got the Stunner, that was it. You saved the kickouts for the major 4 pay-per-views, and that was it. And if they kicked out,
and that was just when sorry, go ahead.
If they hit the finisher twice, done for sure.
That's it. Yeah.
And
see, the only people that they made kick out of the finishers were people they were really trying to build up and make them strong.
Exactly.
You're doing this on a regular Raw, so I don't see the point behind it.
Yes, you're making them look impossibly strong, like too super strong, and at the same time you're cheapening the move.
Absolutely, and that's the thing that kills me is you're cheapening the move.
Exactly. So when you see it in a pay-per-view, like if they stretch this out to Royal Rumble or SummerSlam, or heck, I would like to see this go all the way out to WrestleMania.
Absolutely.
You're not, like, when you see nowadays in general, when you see the first 1 or 2 specials, you're not expecting a pinfall. You're expecting a count out. Yeah. Nowadays, it's like more expecting a roll up old school's pin, like
old schoolboy 1, 2, 3.
But it just takes the excitement and the drama and the story. It sucks the air out of it, and I wish they'd respect it more because they've already lost kayfabe.
Kayfabe's dead
too, and I'm okay with kayfabe being dead.
Yeah, but to us, I mean, with back in our day, when you watched a finisher, you think you were seeing something special. Like, not every match did you see a finisher.
Exactly.
Shawn Michaels didn't super kick a jobber from Wisconsin every night. He would save that for his big opponents. Now they're brogue kicking, Claymore kicking, and punting everybody from even the first row if you bought the VIP ticket to the pay-per-view. I mean, so everybody's getting it.
It's like the NFL, in my opinion, how they increase the scoring, they cheapen the defense, they increase the passing to make it more exciting. But really what it's doing is cheapening it over time. But other than that, I love the storyline.
I do too.
I think it's really, really good. I think the women's division is a little bit weak, in my opinion, even though there are very talented women on that roster, very talented. I'm I'm missing Charlotte and Becky Lynch more than ever. They bring a spark to that division that only rare people can. And that's not saying that that's because the women suck. That
No,
they're there. It's just that just
they
shows
are the
how good
best.
they
They are
are.
some of the best wrestlers. I mean, I've even when I watched Natalia the other night, she could work circles around half the men's talent on that show.
Exactly. Because
But
she
then
was
also
trained
getting
with
back
me.
to Randy and McIntyre, he had one of my favorite lines that I've heard on TV in a long time, and it's because they're starting to go away from the PG and starting to turn to a little bit more edgier product. But when he gave him,
Like the realistic era is what I would call it now.
yes, all right, we're being real with you. We're not gonna baby you anymore. We're gonna be realistic. But when he gave him that last Claymore in the ring, and he said, I want you to see me in your nightmares, you son of a bitch. That just resonated with me.
Exactly.
Like he meant it, you could feel it. So I like the fact that they're turning the dial and going towards a more edgier product, like we grew up with the Attitude Era. But like you said, you said it perfectly. It's the realistic. It's the real era. You know, we're going real now. We're not playing anymore.
Exactly. So. And I like that, and it just shows a testament to the veteranship that is out there in the ring when that happened, because they both knew where the camera was and where the mic was, and they knew exactly how to set that shot up.
Yep.
And Drew knew that he didn't have to yell it because he wasn't full of screaming fans. It's piped in noise right now, which doesn't matter because it makes it feel better to me. But they worked that camera perfectly. Granted,
and
that kick looked atrocious on the stage, but they redeemed themselves with that little saying, like you said. But go ahead, sorry.
But sorry about that. I think with this pandemic era of wrestling, they've had to work on that. Find the camera, find the hard cam, find the microphone, find the closest cameraman, because you're not playing to a crowd, but you're playing to the fans at home. So you need to find that camera. You need to find that spot where the people at home feel like you're working for them.
Exactly, and they don't change the channel because if you sell tickets, they can't. I mean, they can leave, but they're probably not gonna.
Exactly.
What you need to do is build the audience on TV that won't turn the channel.
Because it is harder to draw fans in when there's not fans in the arena. It's harder for people to watch it when there's not fans there. You know, everybody, we all talk about we're ready to see football and do this. It's going to be a different product. So you've got to work harder at professional wrestling to get because this is strictly based off capturing an audience and capturing their attention.
And the adrenaline rush that they catch, just like with football and basketball. I actually heard a good point. I was watching Colin Cowherd. It has nothing to do with wrestling, but I think it does at the same time. In all of sports, you have these new people. Well, this first part doesn't count for wrestling, but you have these new rookies and these bench people and these younger players that aren't used to playing in big games and understanding what home field advantage and what intensity level that raises in you and the adrenaline it gives you. So it's harder for the veterans like Tom Brady and LeBron James and all those other people to draw it, because that's how they draw their pure self out. But even more so with wrestling, because even from a young crowd all the way up, even if it was 5-10 people, there were still people yelling as hard as they could, up to what the largest one in Toronto or whatever being like over 100. No, in Dallas being like over 100 and something.
109, I think. I'm probably wrong. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah, I was gonna say 110, but having that many people scream your name and stuff, so it's just all the respect in the world to them. So that's pretty much it as far as I got on that, other than the Hurt Business. I do like what they're doing. I like the Cedric Alexander turn.
I think that's going to boost him. I really do.
I do too. I didn't like him as a face, just like as I didn't like Bailey as a face that much, because it was stale. They're too corny. If
they're back to the early 90s, kind of gimmick. We're real. happy-go-lucky kind of stuff. But,
Exactly. So I'm glad, and I was kind of iffy about the Hurt Business, but now I'm becoming more of a believer, and I hope they add at least one.
the new nation, baby, the new nation of domination.
That's what I feel like it could be. But I need them to hire. I need them to hire another high-profile. African American wrestler. Like maybe.
Well, you don't even have to do that. Nation brought in Owen Hart. I mean, just another guy.
Owen wasn't really my biggest fan. What I'd really like to see is Titus O'Neil is still under contract,
Absolutely.
and he could be he could be. Well, I mean, personally, if he's going to go all out, I would drop that and make him literally like Jack Hager is. Just make him the quiet muscle because he's huge and
he's a massive dude.
And he's got super like great big man moves that are high impact. And you make him the wrecking ball of the crew with Bobby Lashley, and I feel like you have a perfect combination of what could be another Nation of Domination-esque type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would love to see that. Also, just random thoughts, not necessarily Raw or SmackDown. I think Big E deserves a push as well.
Absolutely.
For a championship. He may not win it. I don't think he's necessarily ready to win the championship and support it.
But he needs to be in the picture.
Yeah, I think they need to start working him into the crowd being used to him being a main event level player individually, and then eventually work his way. He's not ready for a 200-day championship reign or anything like that yet. But just definitely get him comfortable with the audience to being seen in that aspect, because it hasn't yet, but it's gonna get stale, him fighting in the mid card until New Day gets back. It's just gonna make him look like he needs New Day to be relevant, and he doesn't, because before he joined New Day, even when he was before he broke off from Dolph Ziggler and when he was with Dolph Ziggler, he stood out, in my opinion, more than Dolph Ziggler did.
Yeah, he did.
His
and then he would do the
he got me excited to be out there, because you can see his intensity, and that's starting to grow now, because he even got up in Corey Graves' face and was like, "Tell him about me, Corey. Tell him about me." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But anyways, those are my thoughts on SmackDown, and our thoughts on Raw and SmackDown. We're gonna segue into NXT because that's something that we all feel very passionate about. We were all lucky enough. We're all lucky enough to have the network, and we were all lucky enough to witness what was a fantastic pay-per-view, NXT Triple X or NXT 30, however you want to slice it. It just shows from top to bottom, from start to finish.
That was probably one of the greatest ladder matches I've seen in the past 15 years.
Yes,
just throwing that out there.
Good.
And the homage or homage, or if you want to sound fancy, that I forgot his name, it escapes me, but the big dude gave to Bam Bam
Bronson. Oh my gosh, dude, he reminds me so much of Bam Bam.
That's
perfect.
To me the night that he was watching it for the first time, and that was his literal words. He was like, "This dude reminds me of Bam Bam," and I was like,
"Yeah."
That inspired him, and he was giving tribute to him. If you notice, not everybody did it, but there was wrestlers throughout the night that gave homage to previous wrestlers before them.
Yeah.
Also another thing about Raw. I'm tired of Mysterio versus Seth Rollins' crew. That's completely dead to me.
It's done.
It's done. Dominic.
Dominic's a good wrestler, though.
Yeah, I agree. Dominic needs his own singles run, but
I'd love to see him versus Dad.
That would be an amazing WrestleMania match. But I need to see Dominic. Seth Rollins is too good to work with Dominic, in my opinion. Not saying Dominic's bad, but he's just raw.
He's green. He's green.
Yeah, send him to NXT for sure. But anyway, back to NXT.
Yes.
Takeover was fantastic. The 5-man ladder match, I did not expect that win. I expected, I expected a different winner of that ladder match. But that's what I love about Triple H and Shawn Michaels having not all of it, but having a big say in how the show goes. Just you guys, I've been talking just about this whole time, so I'm gonna give you guys a few minutes to mention how you felt about Takeover and in general, or the ladder match, however, and I'll sit back and I'll chime in whenever I have a thought. So.
I thought Takeover was amazing. The ladder match was, I mean, you had high spots everywhere, but they were well thought out, well executed high spots. They weren't just high spots for the sake of high spots. Mm-hmm. Everyone meant something, and they made a turn in the match. Didn't see Damian Priest pulling the win off. I thought they were going to go back with Gargano, maybe Velveteen.
I want Velveteen to win, in my opinion, but
and then the championship match, the NXT championship match. Everybody knew Cross was going to pull the win off. Unfortunately, he was injured in the match, which was kind of ironic because they were working. He was working Keith Lee's arm the entire match, and Cross ended up being the one with the hurt arm. Yeah, that was the weird thing, but it was a great match as well. Keith Lee was all out that entire. I mean, he moves amazing for a big guy.
Nature, you can tell, and we saw in the Last Ride documentary, Taker's been working with these big guys, especially Keith Lee, and you can see how he's being off. The dude's like, it got to be close to 400 pounds, and he can jump as high as anybody and be as fast as anybody. So yeah, I agree with you.
And speaking of jumping high, what about Pat McAfee at Takeover jumping flat-footed onto the top rope?
Well, I was going to let Drew.
Sorry, Drew. I didn't want to take your thunder. Take
you're good. You're good, man. Pat was amazing for that to be his first match.
Yeah.
He was really impressed by that.
Dude, I was really impressed with McAfee in general. With that being his first match, I mean, I know he's been training and doing but that was his first televised match, and that was crazy. It was good, and that was Adam Cole.
And his first live promo too was even intense.
Yeah.
Drew, talk about it for a second. Give us your takeaway from it.
It just, I watch his podcast a lot too, but like just seeing him in a totally different element. And like I said, him being in that first match, and it just goes to show you how athletic punters and kickers really are. Like they don't get any credit in the NFL. But he was doing flips, and he jumped flat-footed to the top rope and then suplexed him off the rope. I mean, it was just insane for somebody's first match to be able to do stuff like that.
Drew, did you kind of think that AJ Hawk kind of got disrespected by them just saying it's AJ Hawk, not like the former NFL linebacker AJ Hawk? I think that was kind of a slight at AJ. I'm like, Hawk's a dangerous man, and you're just going like, he's an afterthought,
dude.
I think Clay Matthews overshadowed how good of a player AJ Hawk was.
Yeah, but I mean, you got to. We're going to go on a whole different rant about football.
This isn't football. This is wrestling, fool.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of NXT, though, what about the addition of Wade Barrett being a commentator?
Love it. Absolutely love it.
I love it too. But if you got the dirt sheets, they signed him to a superstar contract, not a commentator contract. So look out for Wade Barrett to be working possibly. They probably just signed him just in case they needed something in the future. But I would definitely look out for Wade Barrett to have an angle. And I would love I absolutely, the two most heartbreaking losses to this when AEW became, and Dean Ambrose left. Obviously, Dean Ambrose broke my heart, but Cody broke my heart really bad because I saw his potential and that they were wasting him. But another one was that other guy. I just said his name.
Wade Barrett.
Yeah, wait. Sorry, I'm an idiot.
The guy that started the conversation.
Sorry, guys, I did a podcast till like midnight last night, so my brain's a little fried right now. But yeah, Wade Barrett, I think he did not get enough of a push. The League of Nations killed it.
That was terrible.
Yeah,
that League of Nations was the drizzling shits from the first day.
Yeah,
it was terrible.
He was amazing in the Nexus, and that's how he should have been. But I'm waiting for, during a takeover, Wade Barrett being absent and then wondering where he's at, and the commentators make a comment, and then during a big moment, he comes out and he's like, "I'm afraid I have some bad news." That's his.
I'm afraid I have some bad news.
Yeah, I'm taking your title at the next review or the next takeover or something.
Yeah.
Like, it would give me goosebumps. But yeah, so the Fatal 4-Way on. So after NXT Takeover, that Keith Lee match was fantastic. Pat McAfee. And then that Tuesday Fatal 4-Way to set up that Wednesday show.
Hold on. Remember, Cross had to drop the belt first.
Yeah, he did have to drop it. That's what you mentioned earlier. Unfortunately, to be honest, I wasn't that excited to see Cross with the belt because we just saw Keith Lee. Like, I don't want another big guy right away. I want something different.
Yeah, he's a one-man show anyway. He's a good wrestler, but he's mostly entrance.
Yeah, exactly. But the people that they put in the Fatal 4-Way, that's the kind of Fatal 4-Ways I like to see for number one contenders because
absolutely.
I would not be angry at any single one of those guys. They have their characters down perfect. They know exactly who they are. They're all veterans. They've all been injured and recovered from injury. I don't know about Adam Cole, but I know at least the other three have. So they know what it's like to almost lose it and get it back, and that's made them more fiery, especially Ciampa. Dude, that guy is on fire. But
yes, and the thing is Finn was in the exact same situation as Cross was with the Universal Championship. Exactly. Same injury and everything. It was the same setup.
I didn't really like his character at that time anyway. It was too babyface, but that's neither here nor there. But that match was great. It just showed off. It just showed off how talented that roster is and how well they trust Triple H and Shawn Michaels trust their wrestlers to be who they are. They trust them in promos. They trust them in matches. They let them be creative. They don't micromanage. And that's one of the greatest assets that you can have when you have a roster like that has that much experience in the independent scenes. So that was great. And now moving on to this last episode, this Wednesday episode of NXT. Obviously, we'll save the big main event, Finn versus Cole, for last. But was there any takeaways other than that during the show that you guys appreciated at all, or not necessarily appreciated, but think that were highlights enough to bring up?
The Rhea Ripley, cage match was really good. Yeah. And I thought it was set up really well, and it was executed well. Those are two bigger women in like height, stature, and they're really aggressive characters.
Yeah, they're changing the game for sure.
Exactly. You're getting, instead of just you're having your frou-frou, women, you have your big men and your big women. And they have really aggressive characters. And I thought it was well done with the cage match, and it was set up well, and especially with Mercedes Martinez throwing in the chairs and all the weaponry in beforehand. I thought it set up a good story for the match.
Yeah, and hands down, in my personal opinion, not to throw shade at the other women's divisions, but I think NXT on the whole, out of all the WWE promotions, They, from top to bottom, have the best women's division in WWE. They're all
Absolutely.
superstars, especially with the addition of Charlotte, even
Yeah.
though she missed Takeover 30. But um, um, other than that, let's segue to the match of the night.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably the match of the week, even considering
Yeah.
even considering the ladder match and then the fatal four way. You got to see two true wrestlers, two true veterans in the ring,
Masters of their craft.
masters of their craft. Exactly, that's the exact words I was looking for. Go at it one on one against the championship for real, like not some gimmick match to set up a match in the future or a pay-per-view or to sell tickets later.
Yeah, this was for the belt.
Yeah, they let those two guys go out and perform like it was a pay-per-view, and you could feel that electricity in the air for sure.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I thought it was great.
yeah, they didn't fail to impress. They laid it all out there.
That 1916 though, that
The
was
reverse.
man.
So the reverse the
Wow.
inverted 1916. That was probably the coolest move of the match. Wasn't expecting it. I think it was just done on the fly because he couldn't get it the regular way. But it's Finn Balor. He does what he wants. I mean, he's just that athletic. He's a master at what he does, and Adam Cole is too. So those guys, they could wrestle out in the middle of the street and draw a crowd of 300, 400 people.
Yeah.
But it was going to be an amazing match. There was no way it couldn't be.
Yeah,
So,
I agree for sure.
glad to see Balor's got the belt back. I wouldn't have been mad with Cole having the belt. Like I said, both guys are amazing. Wouldn't be mad either way. But I'm glad to see Balor's got the belt back and starting to bring his career back to what it should have been in the first place instead of getting washed into the middle card, Intercontinental. He needs to be the top of one of the shows.
Well, to be honest, and usually it's good, strong stables that make good individuals, but I actually think Undisputed has held Adam Cole back.
Absolutely. Yeah. If it wasn't for them, I bet he would have already been on the main roster.
Yeah.
But I don't. That's the thing. I'm selfish. I don't want to see him on the main roster.
I don't either because
NXT.
they'll bury him in the mid card.
I don't want him to get buried. So Balor, stay at NXT. Adam Cole, please stay at NXT.
Yeah, exactly. Rob Ziggler, NXT. Like all these great wrestlers get buried in the mid card because.
But Dolph Ziggler, please stop ripping off Shawn Michaels. I mean, come on, man.
Cole. Like I truly believe now he's nowhere near Taker, Shawn Michaels level type of Shawn Michaels, but I think this early in his career, his WWE career, learning from Shawn Michaels, I believe he's the closest thing we have today to a Shawn Michaels. Even though he doesn't do a super kick, I think he should adopt it, not as a special because
Cole?
He
super kicked Balor like 12 times in this match.
Yeah,
that may be what he's doing.
I would make that part of his signature and then lead that into his finish because I don't want to finish. But yeah, I think he could be, not that he is now, but he could be as close to Shawn Michaels as you can get without being Shawn Michaels, because there'll never be another Shawn Michaels. But I think he's got the potential to be that.
But all around, I think NXT's heading in a good spot. They've got Balor's the champion. They're setting up really good storylines. They're heading in a good place.
Well, speaking of NXT, what about their rivals on Wednesday night, Chad? Give us the rundown on AEW. I'll hand it all off to you.
AEW, man. Pretty much, if you've been watching AEW, you saw All Out last weekend. Matt Hardy took a massively bad bump off the scissor lift off the back of hit his back of his head on the concrete.
Could have been a situation.
Oh, he could have been. It could have been really bad. I don't like the way AEW handled that. just because I think they should have stopped the match completely and not let him. I mean, the guy was concussed and he was climbing up scaffolding. I mean,
so for the people that didn't get to watch it, how did they handle it? Did they force the match?
Okay,
to go
so
with
the ref, no, they didn't force it. The ref did the X and was trying to throw it up, but nobody came out to stop Matt and protect himself from himself.
Like when they did with Mankind when he fell off the cell.
Exactly. They come out there and then they kind of let it continue. But anyway, so Matt comes out on AEW and just kind of addresses the whole, I got hurt. Yeah, it looked bad, but I'm coming back. Let me take time off and get healthy and, spend time with my family kind of thing. And he emphasized a lot that when I come back, I am going for either the AEW title or the TNT title. So he's going after a belt when he gets back. He didn't specify how long he was taking off. He just said he was taking off.
I think he understands that he's coming to the end of his road, and he wants it. He wants his 5 years to mean something.
Yeah.
To have that legacy. But anyway, sorry.
So no, you're good. Orange Cassidy had a match with Angelico. The match was okay. It was just your filler match. But the thing afterwards is he was attacked by Santana and Ortiz. And, them two and Orange Cassidy and the Best Friends in the Inner Circle have been battling each other for months now. But Santana Ortiz attacks and Best Friends come out and, defend Cassidy. And that leads into next week, which is Best Friends versus Santana and Ortiz in a parking lot brawl. So I think they're doing a really good setup for that one. And this should be the end all with the Best Friends and Santana and Ortiz. Mm-hmm. This should be their crescendo to the feud. I don't know what's next for Orange.
Jericho, I think. That's
but that's leading into my next thing. Jericho and Hager they're vowing for the tag team titles now. They're going towards tag team gold. They're not really focused on their singles career right now. They said that the Inner Circle will have the tag team titles, but it will be on Jericho and Jake, as he put it. So
maybe they're protecting, because usually, as you know, when they put people in tag matches, it's because either they're protecting them before a pay-per-view, or they're too old, or they're trying to.
Jericho's old, but he still got it. He can still go.
But I mean, they're using Jericho to build up bigger.
Yeah. And but the biggest takeaway from AEW this week was the debut of Miro. If we all know him as Rusev Machka. So his gimmick in AEW now is the best man. So Kip Sabian comes out, and him and Penelope Ford are getting married. So he was amping up the fact that they were going to show his best man. They did a little comedy skit with a couple of people, blah, 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 blah. And then it's like, this is really the best man. And then on the Titantron, the best man flashes up and out walks Rusev or Miro. We're going to call him Miro from now on. Everybody knows who Rusev is. He's Miro.
Just like Moxley.
Yeah.
Real quick, when you say best man, you mean like literal at a wedding, or like?
Well, that's what the angle they were going to. But from what I've read on the dirt sheets, is the best man is going to be AEW's version of Mr. Perfect. He's good at everything.
Okay. Cool.
I kind of like the idea, but I hated the way that they introduced Miro. They made his promo was shorter than the comedy skit they did before his debut. You're going to. Sorry, I had some technical difficulties there.
No, you're good. It all happens.
But his promo, it was really good. He come up with a promo. He said, I've been in the same house with the same glass ceiling for 10 years searching for that imaginary brass ring. And then he looks dead in the camera and said, you can take that brass ring and shove it up your ass. Nice. He's mentioning WWE because they always talk about breaking the glass ceiling and grabbing the brass ring.
Yeah.
I think he's going to do good things in AEW. I think he'll eventually get the belt. I just don't like the way how they softly debuted him. They could have been a lot bigger and a lot better on that.
Do you think they're still trying to decide whether to make him?
Yeah.
heel
I
or
don't think they know what they're going to do with him yet. I know that they've got a big name, but they don't want to screw it up like WWE did.
Do you think? How did the crowd react, and how did he react to the crowd?
So
did it feel more heel, or did it feel more face to you?
Of course, Kip Sabian is the heel, but they were working Rusev face. He was playing to the crowd. He wasn't, the only person he was disrespecting was WWE. I think there's going to be something going on where maybe him and Kip Sabian are tagging, and he turns on Sabian and gets the baby face turn. But he was playing to the crowd too much to be playing heel. So, yeah.
I think he was just absorbing the moment.
Exactly, yeah. So we'll see in future episodes. Next big storyline, Lance Archer wins the Battle Royal and will be facing Jon Moxley next week on AEW Dynamite for the title. Or I take that back. It's not next week. It's in October for the anniversary. It's October the 14th, the anniversary show of Dynamite.
Oh, so, October 14th. That's literally my birthday. Sweet.
Yeah, so your birthday is the anniversary show for Dynamite. So it'll be 1 year anniversary for Dynamite. MJF had a really good promo with his campaign team, which I love MJF. He is the best douchey heel I have seen in years.
He is one. He is the generation that I hope brings back kayfabe.
Absolutely.
Because he is 100% sold on kayfabe.
Yes, he's wanting to go for the title, but you see something stirring between him and Wardlow, his bodyguard, because he says Wardlow cost him the title at All Out,
and that's always the beginning.
It's the same thing with Shawn Michaels, Diesel, Shawn Michaels, Sid Vicious. It's going to be the same thing. The big guy and his employer and his bodyguard are, they're going to split.
Yeah.
So it's heading towards that same way. So I guarantee you the next pay-per-view or leading in towards one of the bigger pay-per-views coming up, it's going to be Wardlow and MJF. You can just see that's the way it's going. But Lance Archer will be taking on Jon Moxley, like I said. Lance Archer still with Jake the Snake, so that makes that interesting. Anytime Jake the Snake's on TV, you're going to tune in. So
you're going to listen because, like you mentioned,
absolutely, you got to listen because you're going to find out something.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, just a fastball that I'm going to throw you that I just thought.
Yeah.
You think Archer would be as interesting and as deserving for a Moxley championship match if he did not have Jake Roberts?
No. He doesn't have he's got the size, he's got the persona, he just doesn't have the experience yet. But that's why they put him with Jake. But I don't think he'd quite be ready if it wasn't for Jake.
So it's just
he's the one that's making it interesting.
So yeah, basically it's a build up to give him credibility instead of the Moxley. So you predict Moxley is in no trouble to lose.
Moxley's not losing the strap anytime soon, I don't think.
Gotcha.
Which brings to my next thing about the strap. Kenny Omega and Hangman.
Show us yours. I said,
Le Champion.
You got a little bit of the bubbly with
my
you?
My wife threw it in the dryer, so it's kind of smaller than usual. But I am Le Champion. I'm not even Le Champion on my house.
What is this? Bubbles? A little bit of the bubbly.
A little bit of the bubbly, yeah.
There you go.
I got a little bit of the Diet Pepsi.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Anyway,
you're fine, dude. But FTR had their tag team celebration. FTR reminds me of good old school hard-nosed tag teams.
And tell everyone who FTR is for those who don't.
FTR, it used to be the Revival in WWE, but they are Fear of the Revolution in AEW. So everybody remembers Cash and Wilder.
Yeah.
So they are now FTR and AEW, Fear the Revelation. They are with Tully Blanchard, which is from Four Horsemen fame. Tully Blanchard's a great on the mic still. So and FTR is really not bad on the microphone, but they have that little extra. No, they're not. But they have that little extra boost with Tully Blanchard.
Like we were talking about those once in a generation managers, those mouthpieces. Yeah.
And they remind me of Tully's old mates in the Four Horsemen, Ole and Arn, the Minnesota Wrecking Crew.
100%.
They remind me of them. They're hard nosed. Yeah, they look just like them. They're bigger dudes, and they're no frills, like they say. No flips, just fists.
Exactly.
So, I think they'll hold on to the championships for a long time. They will be facing Jurassic Express next week, which it's a filler match, so you can have something to watch.
I don't see Jungle Boy like I applaud what he can do because he can do things that I cannot do, but I do not see a person that small and that type of that weird dynamic group. Now, granted, they're fantastic with what they do. A big guy being that agile, and then a small dude being that just
that
impressive.
Quick and
I just don't like their gimmick.
It's just not. It's not going to take them anywhere. And like I meant to mention earlier, and we have talked before, even before the podcast. It's like Orange Cassidy, but it's not a big time gimmick. It's cool, and it's interesting, and it's entertaining, but it's not main event material gimmicks. So we'll see. But then last but not least, Brody Lee versus Dustin Rhodes. Great match, especially for Dustin being almost 60 years old. I mean, I think he's 55 or 56. He pulled out a sunset flip powerbomb. I mean, that was pretty cool for, he's going to do his same comeback, which is double Irish whip, drop to his knees, uppercut, Irish whip to the power slam. Yeah, exactly. But then he comes out with some newer stuff. He pulled out a Hurricanrana, and he pulled out a sunset flip powerbomb.
I love his cutter too. His vertical suplex, like half.
It's the twist cutter, as I call it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that move, especially for someone like him. But sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you're good. So yeah, AEW was a great show. It doesn't look like it's going to be as exciting this next coming week because you're not coming off of a pay-per-view, but it's still going to be a good show. But Drew, we have all been talking about the Last Ride pay-per-view.
Well, hold on 1 second. We lost Chad. Anyway, I was going to say something anyway before that. To segue, I don't know if anybody's watched AEW or even cares about AEW, but you should definitely watch a highlight film of Orange Cassidy. He is super entertaining, but now he's getting pushed as a more serious character, and he showed that here recently. His new finisher, the Orange Crush or the Orange Punch, whatever it's called, is fantastic. If you guys watch AJ Styles and you watch Roman Reigns, it looks like a combination. He doesn't do it off the ropes like AJ Styles, but it looks like a combination of the phenomenal forearm mixed with a Superman punch. It's just absolutely fantastic. It's a really great move. So definitely look up that highlight and see how powerful it is. He has a nice slap on his thigh, so it's got a nice sound to it. So anyway, Drew, so you, like all of us, but you most recently partook in being blessed to watch The Last Ride, the Undertaker's few, if only, documentary that followed him for 7 years. He's finally maybe convinced to hang it up. So he's allowing his true self to show because, like we talked about, he spent most of his career protecting his kayfabe. So why don't you give us a rundown on the first episode, what it was titled, kind of the theme about what it was about, and then we'll just kind of discuss our opinions on how we felt about it and what emotions it gave us.
Episode 1, they titled it "The Greatest Fear," and in that he talked about his greatest fear was hearing other people talk about him, like, not being the guy that didn't have it anymore. Like, he didn't want to be. He wanted to go out on his own terms. He wanted to be the one that said, "Hey, I don't have it anymore. I'm going to go out now."
And for the first time, he really had doubt in his life. And they showed a really good scene of Triple H, like, giving him a pep talk because he saw how nervous he was in his eyes. So I thought,
that was a pretty
surreal.
Yeah, it was a pretty powerful moment. He basically was like, "You're the Undertaker. Get your ass up and get out there and do what you do." And I guess it kind of like sunk in with him, and he went out and that was the Roman Reigns fight. What I believe it was, wasn't it?
And they put on a decent. All right, Chad. We're
like the Undertaker. I have been resurrected.
But yeah, we literally just started the Last Ride segment. We just Drew just mentioned Roman Reigns, and all that. I was about to say before I saw you get back on. Even though the match was decent, in my opinion, the Undertaker is used to such a high level match and putting his all out there. And one of the things that stood out to me is he loved the business so much. He didn't care that he was losing to Roman Reigns.
No.
He cared that
about the product that he was putting out there.
Yeah,
That's what he worries about.
He didn't make Roman Reigns look as well as he wanted Roman Reigns to look.
And that's what made him feel bad. He did not make him look as strong as he wanted him to, because Taker's all about what's best for business. Well, if Vince tells him that Roman's the guy and he's going to be the guy that's best for business, he's going to do everything in his power to make sure Roman gets over.
Exactly.
He just didn't feel like he gave that.
And Drew, to finish your point, sorry I interrupted you, but you go ahead with what you're saying.
Yeah, like Chad was saying, he cared so much about the business. Like, I feel like Vince could tell him, "Hey, the WWE is gonna sink if you don't go jump off this building." I feel like he would go do that. That's how much he loves the WWE.
Yeah. Hey, I need you to take a jackhammer from Goldberg and land on your neck. Oh, okay, no problem.
Yeah, not a problem. Let me get on that.
Anyway, we'll talk about that
later. Bunch of Mania the entire match, and it's going to be good for business. Okay,
that's a different pod. That's next week's podcast.
That's next week's in a different episode, but we'll definitely have a lot to say about that one.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. You guys got anything else for episode 1? Anything else you want to talk about?
I think one thing that I took away from episode 1 is that people don't really see until you look behind the curtain is the preparation that from literally a week after Mania, he starts his preparation for the next WrestleMania. I mean, this guy everybody thought, well, he's part-time. No, he's not part-time. You just don't see the work that he does behind the scenes.
And it usually starts with a replacement of some part of his body first.
Yeah, it takes a major surgery. He's like, he's probably half machine and half Undertaker by now, as much stuff as he's had replaced.
Well, so, he's got 3 hip replacements. So.
Yeah, he's had both of his hips replaced, and I think that was the one thing that I took away that I was so amazed with. He was a year round getting ready for one match.
Yeah, I remember him making a comment that I think he said for about 5 years of his career, his schedule was get ready for Mania, fight Mania, and then get whatever replaced that I got messed up in that match, and go from that rehab to training to Mania for 5 years.
Yeah, I agree. I had respect for Taker before this, but just seeing the struggle that he went through in that episode and how much I resonated with him because I'm my biggest critic in life. Like no one can ever criticize me or tear me down as much as I can myself, or as much as I will myself. And I feel like that's how Taker is. If it's He's always finding a way to nitpick and make it better, and to do that for as long as he's basically anointed king of wrestling. Like he's judge, jury, executioner. He runs the locker room. Not only cemented his legacy, like he's untouchable. So, but he doesn't have to care about putting on bad matches because he's going to get paid and he's going to draw anyway. But the fact that he has so much pride and it affected him that much that he wanted to keep going despite the fact that he had to have another hip replacement and another full year of rehab, and he wanted to give Roman, it like haunted him. And I hate that it happened, and I hate that he had to go through that, but I also respect his love for the business that much. It also helps having Michelle McCool to go home to every day. So,
like we've stated before, I don't think she owns a full set of clothing in her entire closet.
I mean, not
shirts and bikini tops.
Not to sound, misogynistic or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm not mad at it. That's what I'm going to say. I'm not mad at it. And I'm not going to critique it and try to change it.
I dare you to say it to Taker's face, though.
I don't know what I'd say to Taker's face. I'd probably just be in shock.
Taker, how are you?
Yeah, I don't even know if I could get words out. I can barely do an intro to a podcast. So, all right. So Drew. So, like I said, we're doing episodes 1 through 3 this week. So, why don't you take us off into number 2?
All right. Well, before I do that, we were talking the other night, and Chad said it really stuck with me that Taker was Taker even when he wasn't wrestling. Like he just became Undertaker. Like he was so caught up in the character, loved the business so much. Like what'd you say, for 30 years
it's 32 years. He was Taker every single day.
Didn't let anybody in.
Yeah, he respected the kayfabe of the business, which is, for those that don't know, not to insult any fans out there that are watching the podcast, because we want to make this for everybody, beginners, the hardcore marks, the casual fans.
And if this is your dirty little secret, we promise we won't tell anybody. Just listen.
We can use some wrestling terminology just out of habit, not to seem cool. It's just how we talk. So just a little bit of a rundown. When we say kayfabe, that means character. That means living your character outside of the ring. And what Drew's saying is he committed so hard to his kayfabe for about 30 years, to the point where he was riding in ambulances and hearses and wearing all black all the time and things like that.
The man said he would open up his closet for 30 years and have no other color but black.
Yeah. But anyway, back to Drew. I just wanted to explain to the fans real quick what kayfabe was.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Episode 2, they titled it The Redemption. I'll let you guys go ahead and kick it off with the discussion.
Well, the main reason he came back, I mean, everybody thought he was done. He put the hat, the gloves, the jacket in the middle of the ring. But when he went back and watched that match, he was like, I can't end my career on this cluster of a match. He just seriously couldn't see himself. I mean, if Taker would have lost a leg in that match, he would have got him a prosthetic and found him a way to redeem himself. There was no way he was letting his legacy and his career fall on that match. And
I think
I respect the guy for that.
I think he let his emotions overcome him with that match, and he was a little bit too hasty in putting down what he put down in the middle of the ring, because it kind of diminished the rest of the matches after that. You know what I'm
It
saying?
did. Yeah, he did.
Um,
But the way that he did come back, leading into the next Mania with Cena, he looked like a different Taker.
yeah.
He was in way better shape. He was mentally in a different spot. Like he said in episode 1, he was having a lot of stuff going on in his personal life. Well, in
Yeah.
episode 2, he was in a good place with the family. He was in a good place physically. He said he could finally move his hip without pain for the first time in like 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
So it was a different Taker.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
definitely showed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you
Even
can just
though-
see. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Well, I was just gonna say, um, I give a lot of credit to John Cena, because he didn't have to do this, but it just shows the respect factor that everyone has for Taker.
Yeah.
John Cena has been the top guy for like almost 2 decades, but he essentially made himself the sacrificial lamb. He was like, you know what? I'll be the one to help Taker get his mojo back. I'll let him basically squash me in a quick
In 30 seconds.
Yeah, like in a quick 5-minute match.
Yeah.
I'll take the loss and just let Taker get his groove back on me. So I think that was really cool with John Cena, because usually he's been accused of burying people and stuff in the past. So I thought that was a kind of a neat turnaround. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and to play off your point about, like you said, help getting his mojo back, I thought it was pretty funny. His wife, in the interview with her, she was like, it was like a really great thing for him, but it was like not a really great thing for him, because
Got his drug back.
it was great because
you know,
he had a good match, he felt good, but it wasn't great because he had a great match and he felt good, and it just made him want to keep going even more.
Yeah, because he's addicted. He's addicted to the business. He loves it. And I don't blame him. If I was a wrestler, I'd be addicted to it too. I'm addicted to it, not even wrestle. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's basically WWE is basically his entire adult life, pretty much. He was in character for what, like we said, 30 years. So,
except for the American,
and you could just see.
Yeah, and the American Badass. But that's the thing about him too. Him and Jericho are the only 2 wrestlers that I've ever seen that can evolve their character over time and do it successfully.
Yeah.
He noticed, like he said he felt his character going stale, and when he did, he had to make a change.
And not only did he make a change, but he literally he almost, I mean, he kind of did break kayfabe for a little bit, but he's just so authentic and real and respected that. And plus, he really is a badass in real life. Like he is. So
how many 6'11" guys do you see that aren't really badass?
Yeah, but
I mean, you get your ass kicked by Taker, you just got your ass kicked by a 6'11" ginger.
Yeah, so I mean, I like it personally. I kind of like the Taker. I like when the Taker where he had the Ministry of Darkness. That was my favorite Taker.
The demented Taker.
Yeah, we're stringing Stone Cold up on that cross, but I'm also partial to the Attitude Era anyway. But that's my favorite Taker, even though those weren't my favorite WrestleMania moments, which will segue into episode 3 on that before we start bringing those up. So, what lead us off on episode 3, Drew?
Episode 3, they entitled it "End of an Era," and that's basically where he kind of realizes, hey, it's pretty much it for me. He got his mojo back with Cena, so he wants to end on some matches on his terms, like with the guys that he basically, was with for years. So I'll let you guys go ahead.
Yeah, when he started when he had that first match with Michaels, I think it was, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was Mania 26. I think it was the first one.
Yeah, and then Triple
somewhere
H
around there.
and Triple H defend like kind of try to have his revenge for Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 27.
Well, it was, you had the two, it was either 25 or 26 or 26, 27. You had Shawn back to back. And, one of those was Shawn's retirement match. That was his last match. And for Shawn to pick out Taker, that's huge respect for a guy that's that well. He's known as Michael Jordan of his sport. So
Mr.
have that much
WrestleMania.
respect for Taker to let him be the last match and beat him. But it was kind of the end of an era. It was the guys that the new generation.
They made the WWE what it was.
It was the new
the
generation.
guys we grew up
that
on.
come in right after. I'm sorry, Drew. What'd you say?
I said the guys that we grew up on.
Yeah, exactly. It was the new generation guys that come out, or when Hogan and Macho Man went to WCW, they were the face. Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Stone Cold, The Rock. But those three were the last ones of the bunch. And those four matches, the two with Michaels, the two with Triple H, it was kind of sad for a kid like me because that was the end of my childhood of wrestling.
Yeah.
We were watching the end of an era, just like as the episode was called. The first Michaels and Taker match is probably one of, if not my favorite matches. It was an instant classic. You can't have a bad match with Taker and Michaels at their prime. I know Taker and Shawn was at the end of his career, and so was Taker was starting to get there. But those two guys in a wrestling ring always make magic. So that then leading into the Triple H, So.
Yeah. I personally was don't get me wrong. I love Shawn Michaels. Again, I loosely, for the record, because I know if anyone watches this, I'm going to get lit up in the comments, but I loosely mentioned that Adam Cole reminds me of Shawn Michaels. I'm not saying that they're equally as good, but like Shawn Michaels, I really, he's not my favorite Taker matches. My favorite Taker match is probably the WrestleMania 27 with Triple H. I'm a little biased, number one, because I was there to see it in person. So I feel like if I would have watched it on TV, I wouldn't have felt it as much as I did being live. But the way they beat the piss out of each other and went through the plexiglass and the sledgehammer, and it was just really raw. Like you could tell Triple H, it was personal because it was his friend, and Taker is the person he hasn't beat at Mania, and he had something to prove, and it was his last year with hair, I think. So, and it was just such an emotional match being there. You could see the will and determination on Triple H's face, not only on his behalf, but on his friend's behalf. And you can see Undertaker not only telling Triple H, I deserved to win that match, but now I'm going to show you what I had to show Shawn.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a beautiful match. But it's not my favorite wrestling match. It's a tie between a couple. I won't mention all of them, but the ladder match with the Hardy Dudley Boys and Edge and Christian, where Jeff Hardy got speared off hanging from the ladder. That was a really good one. But probably my favorite match ever that probably drew a tear to my eye was HBK versus Ric Flair, where he retired him. That moment where he set him up for the sweet chin music, they cut to Ric Flair. Ric Flair's crying, saying, "Bring it on!" Like he knows his wrestling career is about to be over, and he's like, I'm ready. Take it from me. You're the man. Do it. I respect you. Sean, they cut to him. He says, I'm sorry. You can hear him mouth, I'm sorry. I love you. And then perfect chin music. 1, 2, 3. Everyone's crying. It was a beautiful match. I love it from start to
If you
finish.
ask 90% of wrestling fans that are as diehard as we are, you're going to get one of my favorite matches has Shawn Michaels in it. I mean, most everybody. He's the greatest in ring. But also that you can say that with Taker too. I mean, those two guys, they had classics all over the board.
They told such good story. It's hard to tell a story at Mania in general.
Yeah.
But not only that, they told back-to-back stories, and they were different. Both of them. It wasn't. Yes, it was a continuation, and they made it a continuation. But it's like they doubled down, up the ante, and they turned it into a different story, even though it was a continuation. It wasn't just a me. It started off as a I'm better than you. I'm gonna prove it to you know, he got obsessed with it, and he was like, you know what? I know I can beat you, and I will beat you. And in fact, if I don't beat you, then I won't wrestle anymore. And it was beautifully done. I really enjoyed it. So
yeah. Well, guys, what do y'all feel about the first wrestling podcast?
I've enjoyed it.
I have too.
Yeah, I really do like it for sure.
When you started talking about Taker, it brought back a lot of memories.
It does. And like we said, you know, just the casual fan knows who Taker is. And if you're just getting into it, you know who Taker is. So, I mean.
I think Taker and Stone Cold, if The Rock wasn't involved in like literally everything on the planet, he's in a different category of his own.
Yeah.
But two pure wrestlers that didn't make careers outside of wrestling, very like, I mean, I know Steve did his podcast and he had a couple TV shows, but he didn't like
a couple of crappy B movies.
he didn't try to become The Rock or John Cena or anything like that. So it just shows the testament that Taker had and Stone Cold, but just since we're focusing on Taker, it just shows the testament that he has. Like literally, there are people that have never watched wrestling in their life. You ask who the Undertaker is, and they know exactly who you're talking about. You know,
testament to his legacy and who he is. So,
all right,
so the real question
is,
is he really done? You think you'll ever again?
I think the only way he comes back, I thought he was done until they talked him in with AJ Styles. The only reason he came back for AJ Styles is because he knew AJ Styles could help him.
Amazing match.
Yeah, it was an amazing match because he knows how good AJ Styles is, and
AJ Styles could do a WrestleMania match with me, and it would be at the top of the card.
Yeah, and that's why that enticed him. So I think it's a very low possibility that he comes back. But like he said, even in the documentary at one point, he's always got his cell phone on around that time of year. And if he has so much respect for Vince in the business that if Vince calls and says, hey, it's an emergency, we need you. Like he said, I would show up in a heartbeat. But I think if it's the right person and it makes sense and they need to get that person over and give them credibility, and the person, because let's be honest, and even Taker will admit, he does need help carrying the match now. So like someone like AJ Styles or something like that, if he can have someone help him carry the match and it's something that's meaningful that they can put together in not John Cena match time like frame, like an actual like like a 5-month buildup or something like that, or even a 3 or 4 month buildup, I'd be okay with. Then yeah, I think there's still an opportunity. But other than that, I think I truly believe when he said at the end, and not to spoil it, when he said he was happy and he was fulfilled and done, you could see the relief in his eyes and everything. So I truly believe that in his heart right now, he believes he's done. But just like Tom Brady, as long as he plays football, I'm never going to count him out. So as long as he still has Vince's cell phone and he can still train and work out, I'm not going to count him out. But I do find it very unlikely that he at least appears at this WrestleMania. So in a match capacity, I don't blame him like bringing him back or something for like a teaser or like a random choke slam in the friggin' ring or something like that. But like an actual match.
Yeah.
What about you guys? Sorry, I just took 10 minutes to explain that.
No, the only thing that selfishly I would have loved to seen in my lifetime was him versus Sting. But like you said earlier, there's no way that both of them could be in a match together and carry it a good distance.
Because they're both
old. Their careers where they need somebody to help them carry it along. Plus, yeah. Sting's got the neck issue now after the buckle bomb by Rollins. But selfishly, I would love to see that old school WCW versus WWE where it was Sting, the head of the company, versus Taker, the head of the company, and they clash. And they were the two dark elements of their company. But I think they're too far beyond their years and a little too old now. I hate to say that, but I don't think we'll ever see it. And maybe it's one of those things that's, hey, maybe it's some things undone or better. Maybe it's what could have happened kind of thing.
Yeah. So, it's kind of like
dreaming.
It's kind of like the "Don't meet your heroes" slogan that we hear a lot. Yeah. Like it's good to think about what could have been until you actually see.
Yeah, maybe we've got these grand ideas of what the match would be, and if it falls short of amazing, it's going to ruin our expectations. So you know what? Maybe keep that as an imagination. Then that'll be fine. Everybody play it on your WWE 2K and make a good match out of that. So
like me, I always wanted to see Braun versus The Fiend for the championship, and I saw it twice, and I was disappointed both times. So
yeah,
I mean the second one was all right. I liked how they took it to the back, and I like how Braun took the cutter and cut the ring open and really exposed how thin. Number one, I liked it because it showed his new personality and his intensity. But number two, I liked it because if you're one of those people that think wrestling's fake, it's not. Let's get this straight for everybody that's listening. Wrestling is not fake. It's scripted. It's determined who wins and who loses. Sometimes during the match, it can be 100% scripted from start to beginning. A lot of times during the match, there's only a few spots that are scripted, and most of the match, they are talking to each other to a fact that you can't see or hear them talk to each other, and they're improvising on the spot. But
sometimes the finish is changed in the middle of the match because of something that happened. Maybe somebody got hurt.
Exactly. They have to work on the fly, but the bumps mean anytime they hit the ground, whether it be through a table, on the mat, on the concrete, it's a bump. Whenever they do a bump, it's a real bump. You get slammed on your back, and if there's any way anybody that doesn't believe wrestling's fake, or that does believe wrestling's fake, I urge you to watch two matches. 1999 or 2000, Hell in the Cell, Mankind versus Undertaker. I implore you to watch that and tell me that it's fake. Number two, watch the Braun Strowman versus Fiend match. Especially at the very end, the finish, because Braun literally tore the ring up. He took the canvas off and showed what was underneath. And the padding is
Plywood.
literally
That's all it is.
there's a canvas which is just straight cloth. Then there's about an inch of foam, and underneath that is straight plywood. And when he pulled that canvas back after he cut it, you saw exactly what was under the ring. And then they did the finishing moves on the plywood on purpose. Plus, they did it in the back on the concrete. So don't tell me it's fake. It's scripted, but you want to feel fake, get a steel chair and hit yourself over the back or hit a friend on the back.
Come over here. I've got a couple in the corner. I'll do it for you.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, yes, they do pull punches, and they both work together to make sure that the bumps that they take are as careful as possible so they don't get injured. They both work together, even though it doesn't seem like it. There's always two people. It takes two to tango in just about every move. Like if it's a classic vertical suplex, which means the guy's got his arm over his head, lifting him straight up in the air, and it's completely vertical. Usually got him by the trunks. If you notice, while he's lifting him up, the guy that's getting slammed has his hands on the guy's thighs and he's pushing up.
He's propping himself up, yeah.
Yeah, and then he helps hold himself up with core strength. So yes, that part is scripted. But when they both fall and they hit that mat, it hurts. But there's also a reason why the dude puts his arm around the neck. It's to protect the neck on the way down. So it is controlled chaos, but it does really hurt. Just so you guys out there in TV land know that we're not completely insane and think that's 100% real. But
I'm
anyway,
not delusional. I'm just a wrestling nerd.
Exactly, I'm the same one. I mean, I know movies are fake, but I love watching them, and I get just as invested. I mean, either way, I don't care if it's scripted. I don't know the outcome, so if I'm surprised, good for me. Like, yep. I mean, that's how I feel. But so any of you guys got anything to add before we? Do what?
No, and I think we touched everything for this week.
Yeah, I think we did a pretty good job for our first one.
Yeah.
Hopefully, all you guys, all you watchers and listeners, hope you feel the same way. If there's anything you'd like us to add, take out, whatever, give more predictions on the future episodes instead of just review the past. If there's any WWE Originals that you want us to touch on after this next week's 4 through 6 of the last ride, let us know. We're here for you. We're here to review what you want to review. We love wrestling, so we have no problem having an excuse to watch it and talk about it. So, drop some likes, some comments, make some shares. So we can get as many comments as possible and suggestions on what you guys want to hear and what you don't want to hear. First and foremost, we're here for you. Last time anybody has anything to add before we cut this off?
I enjoyed it, guys. Thank y'all for letting me be a part of this.
Yeah, man. Every week.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, guys.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for contributing. Thanks for sharing the love of the business. But as for right now, since this is the wrestling podcast, we do have a different closing statement for those that follow our fantasy podcast. So for officially the first time, we'll read our ending catchphrase. Take it easy, Marks. Don't take this too seriously. And we'll see you next week.
Too sweet.
Yeah, too sweet. Maybe we should start doing that instead of pizza. Anyway, see you guys.
See you.